This is a boiled beef tongue that I made for another project. I still hope you're going to get to see that, but it has been unavoidably delayed for now. The pink color of this meat persists because, prior to boiling, the tongue was cured in brine like a corned beef. Boiled tongue was a pretty common sandwich ingredient back in the late 19th, early 20th century. But it isn't used as much these days, so I'm taking advantage of having made this to tell you about another sandwich that uses it. The story of this sandwich goes like this. Back in the 1930s, the mayor of Maplewood, New Jersey, was spending a bit of time in a bar in Havana, Cuba. This was common at the time, during Prohibition, and for decades afterwards, at least up until Castro took over in the 50s. Plenty of Americans did plenty of drinking in Cuba. But this Maplewood mayor came back raving about the mighty fine sandwiches he tried down in Havana, and he talked his friend, the proprietor of Town Hall Deli in nearby South Orange, into making them. The sandwich is a classic deli-style double-decker, featuring buttered bread sliced horizontally from Pullman loaves of unseeded rye, at least in the Town Hall Deli version. Other delis in the area use more standard slices of deli rye, as I did. The bread is topped with thin-sliced beef tongue, coleslaw drained of its dressing to prevent it from soaking through the bread, Russian dressing, and Swiss cheese, and then another layer of the same featuring ham instead of tongue. The deli began to specialize in the sandwich and named them after the Cuban bar that inspired them, Sloppy Joe's. Yes, in parts of New Jersey, this is what is meant by Sloppy Joe. Of course, in the rest of the country, we understand Sloppy Joe sandwiches differently. The Sloppy Joes I grew up with were hamburger buns filled with loose ground beef, cooked in a rich tomatoey sauce with onion, bell pepper, perhaps some other aromatics, spices, herbs, and cooked down until the sauce is thickened and the meat is tender. You know what's funny? When I describe it like that, it sounds an awful lot like a dish called ropa vieja, which is made with flank steak, stewed with a sofrito of onion, bell pepper, other aromatics, and spices, in a rich tomatoey sauce, until the sauce thickens and the meat is tender and falling apart. Of course, ropa vieja is the national dish of Cuba. But the origin story commonly claimed for this version of the Sloppy Joe is that a clumsy cook in western Iowa, where tavern sandwiches featuring crumbled, seasoned ground beef are popular, accidentally spilled tomato sauce into the loose meat mixture. Everybody liked it, and the resulting delicacy was named after this happy accident. Oh, look, Sloppy Joe made a new sandwich. But if you've ever ordered a loose meat sandwich in Iowa, whether what you ordered was called a tavern, a Charlie Boy, a Tasty, a Maid-Rite, or even just a burger, you sure as hell wouldn't call it Sloppy Joe. And some places will underscore that difference by not even offering ketchup as a condiment. At least, that's how the Maid-Rites that I grew up with were served. Pickle, onion, and mustard only. And yet, another, slightly more well-known patron of Sloppy Joe's bar in Havana was American author Ernest Hemingway. After Prohibition ended, and he spent more time in the U.S., in Key West, he talked a local saloon owner there named Joe into renaming his bar Sloppy Joe's after the joint in Havana. According to the lore of this bar, from the time they reopened as Sloppy Joe's, they have served saucy, loose beef sandwiches out of their kitchen that were inspired by the beef sandwiches of their namesake in Cuba. So we have two American sandwiches, each of them a classic in its own right, yet completely different from each other, that are both named after and originating from a bar in Cuba called Sloppy Joe's. A bar that, for a brief time 100 years ago, was filled every day with drunk Americans. And I just think that's beautiful. I salute you, Sloppy Joe. Both of you.